this is something I was actually interested in. So I took this and I pressed it and I pressed it and I pressed it, and I made sure I was having fun with it, but I showed up every single day to do this crazy thing of playing, make believe in front of my iPhone. And I think what I found is from the reps, I started to get better and I started to get deeper into the subject matter. And that's when I think we nailed what the value structure of rich versus really rich. And I think if you could take a notebook and plot out what the value structure is now. And that's something that I didn't have the wisdom or intelligence when I started the skit. This is something that through the platform, through the meditative act of showing up every single day, I started to realize, okay, I know what the difference between these two characters are a little bit better now. Stephanie?
You did start adding on more characters and making more complex, content as you got more experience, which I think is also really cool.
I mean, this is something that I'm sure. But by the way, Stephanie is a trained chef. I'm sure this is something that you could relate to, where the easy stuff isn't fun anymore, right?
Yeah.
The surfer wants to go after the bigger waves. The guitar wants to push the boundaries. Jimi Hendrix said that if you're not playing the wrong notes, you're not searching enough. You're not taking enough risk and chances. So you guys can.
Leads, sorry to interrupt, but that actually kind of feeds into one of the questions we have on here that says, can you talk about a little of your journey that led up to this point in your life? So what was it in your life that led you to wanting to surf the big waves? What was it in your life that led you to feeling like you could withhold judgment for 30 days about something so, out of your comfort zone?
Because I think at some point I became acutely aware of the fact that I was going to die at some point, no matter what. And if you don't eventually do every crazy, demented idea that you have in your head and you don't test it out and put it out in the world, you've made a critical mistake. Every day that we show up and we don't put our best selves out, we're making a critical miscalculation. We think we have time. We do not have time. Moving to social media for me was something I think maybe wanted to do, and I was too afraid to do it. I was too afraid of what my friends would think. I was too afraid of what my professional community would think. I think at some point I just threw up my arms and said, I don't give a fuck anymore. And ran straight at it. I also had some indescribable feeling that this was going to work. What does work mean? I think I had an indescribable feeling that this was a unique skill that I had, combining finance with the creative endeavor of maybe songwriting. And you guys probably don't know that about me yet, but
no, a lot of your audience actually is very curious about your musical talent.
Sure. So I look at, I'm a musician, a songwriter, a singer, guitar player. I look at TikToks in the same way that I would look at writing a song, or the same way that I used to feel when I was in a recording studio after I left Wall Street. At some point we should probably go through the chronology, because it's a bizarre chronology, going from Wall Street to playing in a rock band to playing House of Blues to breaking up. To starting Resume Atelier, then to starting Pro Automator, then to starting Amoeba Digital, and then of course Rich versus Really Rich. But I guess in a sense, this topic and this theme of iteration is so core. It's just about how willing are you to iterate, and how honest are you going to be with yourself. There's this book called Duende about an American guy that goes to Spain to play guitar with flamenco gypsies. And he talks, the book opens and it says, sometimes when we finally decide we're going to do what we really want to do, we do something kind of like what we really want to do. If we want to be a rock star, we'll be a writer. It's a little safer. If we want to be a movie star, we'll start somewhere else, right? We'll do stand up, and it's probably not a good example, but it takes a lot of guts to do stand up. But I think perhaps in my life, it's been a matter of testing myself about how much am I going to put myself out there. And I think when you hit your mid 30s, you just say, or I think you should say, this would be my advice, is just do the thing. Now.
Yeah. And actually, Nick, going back to that idea of iteration and talking a little bit about your timeline, one of the questions we have is, what would you say the most valuable skill or experience you took away from your time on Wall Street? So I think that would be a really interesting thing for you to talk about, how your experience in Wall Street really shaped your decisions in the following years.
Yeah. I think my dirtiest, darkest secret is that when I showed up on Wall Street, I was a lot like the rich character. I was trading on status, unearned status. Hey, I went to a good school. You guys have to treat me well. Wall Street was the biggest wake-up call of my life, because it was the first time that I realized no one gave a shit, about where you went to school, what you looked like, how your suit fit, how cool your haircut was. It was, how much money did you make today for the bank? Period. Okay. That was a rude wake-up call. That's part of my, it's probably part of the biggest lessons of my life. I couldn't believe how hard people were working on Wall Street. And just for the folks in finance, for the folks not in finance, I was a fixed income trader at Barclays Capital in 2008 during the financial crisis. Later, I started my own desk at UBS. I created a business called Fixed Income Arbitrage, and that's a fancy word for spotting mispricings in the market, and then taking advantage of those mispricings. Wall Street gave me a sense of, holy shit, people are going to outwork you if you aren't all in, and holy shit, all these other soft rules of society meant absolutely nothing. Wall Street, the purity of profit and loss was something that knocked me over the head day one. It was the most pure profit-driven environment in a bewildering sense. Personality was meaningless in a sense. Everything was meaningless except your P&L on the trading floor. So I was a hard worker in college, but I was no match for when I showed up on Wall Street. So
yeah, and it seems like once you saw what that meant, you also recognized maybe that's not the lifestyle that drives you or that makes you feel good. Sure. Would that be safe to say?
Definitely. So I was, and I still to this day am incredibly good at a lot of different things that I don't like. Okay, so or love or care about, right? Like I was good enough to survive the massive rounds of layoffs. I was good enough to build my own business. I was good enough to write my own blank check when I went over to UBS. I was good enough to survive, and I was good enough to quit on my own terms. But at no point were the dollars that I earned on the dollars that I earned on Wall Street were some of the most unsatisfying dollars that I've ever earned in my entire life. It didn't feel rewarding. I didn't feel connected to it. A strange time. I think we all go through these. You have to go there and you have to do the thing. The problem was I spent my whole life thinking that once I got there, that was it. Nick was spending his whole life to wind up at this investment bank and to be this trader and to be this guy that wears this suit and has this haircut and acts like this and goes to this bar and hangs out with these types of people. And when I got there, I felt like a fucking imposter. I didn't want to be there at all. And by the way, this is nothing against Wall Street at all. In fact, I just looked at the guys that should be there, and I said, man, they're going to crush it. They're going to continually crush it, and I should just mosey on my merry way. And it took a lot of guts to quit. I worked. Sure. I worked in finance for 7 years, so it's a little bit longer than a college try, but so to speak. But thank God I left. It just was ultimately not going to be for me.
Yeah, and like you said, it does take a lot of guts to recognize that you're not where you want to be. One question that I think is really interesting is from a person who they have a brick and mortar small business. They're new to e-commerce. They pretty much do everything themselves, and they're looking for cues to determine when it's time to hire help or to automate systems. Yep. And I think that feeds well into that, like having guts and knowing, hey, this is when I need to make this decision, even though it's probably a hard decision to make, either financially or emotionally or whatever.
Yeah. So let's start at the end. Okay. I just added this to my book list, guys, in the book club. Start at the end. How much free time do you need to be sane? How much income do you need to be sane, right? And start to backtrack, right? Because otherwise, what we'll do as small business owners, and Stephanie has literally watched me like go through this process. Should I fib? Well, I mean, it's actually been twice, but I was going to fib and just say once. Where I've overtaxed myself to the point where I was a bottleneck and I was a huge danger to the business. You have to go through and build that org chart for yourself and decide, hey, when I'm sitting down and all I have to do is have my morning coffee, have breakfast, and check in, who needs to be running these various the various units in my business? You need to build out and mock up that org chart, right? Also, I don't have any capacity to be working 24 hours a day, so, and I don't think anyone should. We need time for our friends. We need time for our family. We need time to, take a run. We need time to go to the gym. We need time to go take a bike ride. So you're eventually, as you scale, you have to start adding personnel. Personnel is automation, right? So I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Just to add to that, one thing that I think that I would love to share, because it's something that we implement in Nick's companies, is we automate and then we share those automations with the people that we onboard to help us, right? So one thing kind of feeds into the other. And then one great question from Max is continuing along the lines of entrepreneurship and your businesses, is what is one of the hardest parts of operating your own companies?
Yeah. The problem with being a business owner is for me, the hardest part is deciding what gets reinvested and what becomes a lifestyle expense. Because remember, all the money is hitting your business bank account, and you have to decide, right? How can I attach a multiple to this dollar? Do I hire someone? Do I invest in marketing? Or do I go and buy something cool? Do I upgrade my lifestyle? My argument would be, look for those multiples first. And if you don't have any and you can't find any, then feel free to, have some fun. But to me that's the hardest thing. Where to find those, whether it's personnel, whether it's software, whether it's equipment, whether it's a process. In my opinion, though, the most powerful things in owning and operating a business are actually free, and they're just called standard operating procedures. They're going to make you want to pull your hair out building an SOP. It means literally writing down every single freaking line item of a process. But once you've done that and automated it and handed it to someone, handed it to someone that's a colleague of yours, or handed it to a system or a robot, let's not underestimate robots and the ease of building various types of automation with software like Zapier. If you're not using Zapier and you have a small business, then you haven't dipped your toe into automation yet. I highly recommend everyone check out Zapier. It's the beginner's guide to automating away repetitive processes. Please check it out if you haven't checked it out yet. Then you start to think algorithmically. You start to think about you can run audits on your day. With a pen and paper. Anytime you do something twice, go, can I automate that? Can I automate that? And we're doing it. I'll give you a real life example. Like we're still doing it over here in the Really Rich Squad, right? Like we're finding that I'm cross posting alpha content on TikTok, then it goes to Instagram, and then it goes to YouTube, right? There's no reason why me personally, who has to then immediately jump into, in case you guys are curious of what my day-to-day looks like, the minute I post, I immediately go into writing and planning the next piece of content, right? So what I've built out is our basic SOPs about cross-posting. These are areas that save me personally 30 minutes to an hour every single day that should be dedicated to the creative process of writing another piece of content and then filming another piece of content, right?
Yeah, and I think there's so much to be said for everybody wearing their own hat and actually having that one focus or those few focus. I think that helps people, actually be successful and productive. And continuing along the lines of entrepreneurship, we spoke about what are some of the hardest things. What are common pitfalls of starting a new business that you think everybody should know?
I think so this is going to be really, really particular. So I want to caveat everything that I respond with. This is my personal experience. My personal experience and what I've seen is people feeling the need to raise money, too early, too soon. Like you need product market fit, which is the hardest thing to achieve. Basically the fact that people want to buy your thing, not that they want to buy it, that they will buy it. Right. So what's the old saying? It's like, hey, I've got these really cool widgets. It's going to change your life. And you say, okay, who in the room wants it? 10 hands go up. Okay, well, I've actually got it in the trunk. Take your wallets out. Who wants to come and meet me in the parking lot and buy one? And everyone says, actually, it sounded pretty cool, but I'm on a budget today or whatever it is, right? Finding that product market fit. It doesn't matter if you have millions of dollars of venture capital behind your idea. It doesn't mean anything. And I think a lot of people start with this idea. Oh, I want to give you guys my ultimate paradigm. It's called Miami. It's called the Ivy League mindset versus the Miami mindset. The Miami hustler mindset. But the idea is like the New York Ivy League mindset is I'm creating a unicorn $1 billion company. I'm going to burn cash. I'm going to eat ramen for 5-10 years. And then eventually I'm going to sell my company for $1 billion. Okay. That's your Ivy League, New York City kind of strategy, probably on the West Coast too, certain Silicon Valley enclaves, right? The Miami hustler mindset is cash flow mindset, meaning this thing has to generate freaking cash flow. Okay. I don't care if it generates $10,000 cash flow or $100,000 cash flow a month. It has to generate genuine cash flow. What I do then is after that thing I've maxed out and I've exploited that opportunity for whatever it's worth, I get it to, let's use a really low example, $10,000 a month. I'll build another one. And then I'll build another one. And then I'll build another one. Okay, so the Miami hustler mindset is stack $10,000 companies on top of each other that are completely automated, that have positive cash flow, that you never had to take a dollar from a single investor. I love that. I didn't know about that until I moved to Miami and started infiltrating that community. That was a game changer for me, coming from sort of the Northeast, what I'm calling the New York Ivy League mindset.
Yeah,
also,
for me,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
go for it.
No, I was just going to say, ultimately, the New York Ivy League mindset, it suffers from arrogance, right? It's like,
yeah,
you think that your company is $1 billion, like it's ultimately flawed because it's arrogant and it defies mathematics. Like the chances of your company being a unicorn are minuscule, outrageously so, right? So I always love hustler mindset, and of course that comes through my content. Hustler mindset over high-minded white collar mindset. Hustler mindset always wins. Hustler mindset is skin in the game. Hustler mindset is practitioner. Hustler mindset is getting your hands dirty. And to me, that's Miami versus New York.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually kind of answers this next question. Paola says, I'm an artist currently working in litigation support, not doing much with my art degree in this field, but my job pays the bills. When is the right time to start a business? After you have a product or once you have an idea? What's that sweet spot?
Yeah. It's jumping right in because you're never going to know if you're on the right track, right? Until you start actually putting the nose to the grindstone. Like, right, the reality is going to tell you whether or not your idea is good. You need to start testing it with the market. You need to start surveying your friends. You need to start whatever cheap, and by the way, notice I didn't say you need to go to the bank and ask for a loan. You need to go to your friendly angel investor and ask for $1 million. It's like whatever cheap woodshop way you can to mock up a product, right? The thing doesn't even need to work. Just mock it up and start surveying people, having people playing around with it, watch your friends play around with it, whatever it is. Start today, start tomorrow, because all you're going to do is start that learning process. And the quicker you start that learning process, the better.
Yeah, it goes back to that idea of iteration, right? And I think we did this so much with Amoeba. We got our feedback from every single person who touched this, and we used that feedback to iterate to the point where it made sense
Sure.
and it was working.
Well, it's worthwhile to talk about Amoeba because Amoeba started as a medical device, elective procedure, medical device SEO agency. Okay? Did everyone follow that? Long-winded? It started as a elective procedure, medical device SEO agency. And at the end of the day, it became an omni-channel growth agency that really was doing very little SEO. And the reason for that is because we found that people would hire us for SEO because we put on a really great sales pitch. And then we would sell these clients and they would show up and they say, wait, SEO is that? I thought SEO was this. People didn't even know what SEO was. They'd hire us, right? And then we'd say, okay, well, now we've got this account. We want to retain this account. We found that people didn't even really want SEO. What they wanted was our just savvy, sort of trustworthy sense about communicating the weaknesses in the business and then going out and finding the cheapest and best strategies to grow or to shake off the cobwebs in some of the skeletons in the closet, for instance, in some of these companies. Most of them at the end of the day ended up being e-commerce companies. The furthest thing from going door to door in doctors' offices, Stephanie going door to door in doctors' offices, knocking on doors, and telling doctors that we could make them an extra $1 million, $2 million a year just by getting them on the first result on Google, the GMB, Google My Business maps, or the first result for whatever their cosmetic procedure was that they were trying to sell more of it.
Yeah, and back in the day when we were going door to door, we thought like this was a brilliant freaking idea. We were like, there's no way that this won't sell like hotcakes. And the doctors were like, nah, actually, to have too many patients, so.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Like we can sit in our rooms and our cozy chairs and couches, sipping coffee, thinking we're so freaking smart with our business plans and ideas until we take it to the market and start learning. It doesn't mean shit. It really doesn't. It ultimately doesn't mean shit. So, it's the sort of cliche is like, what's the hardest step to take is the first step, or I don't know. I'm not good with these old sayings, but like when it comes to, hey, when should I start when the perfect time? There is no perfect time. No matter when you start, it's going to be the wrong time. So you might as well just start now and start learning and start iterating now. It's and do it cheaply. Do it very, very cheaply. It's altogether possible for any scale of idea to do it in a mock-up fashion. Mock it up, do it cheaply. There's very few ideas that you can throw at me that I don't think you can mock up and do on a dime, where you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to.
Yeah, and actually that job can actually give you that whatever $500 that you need to get started. And going back to what you were talking about, New York versus Miami mentality, when I first started working with you, that's one of the biggest things I learned. I was like, why am I questioning myself so much and waiting for everything to be, the brand has to be perfect, the logo has to be, let's just do it and see what happens, and let's start bringing money in as opposed to just spending money on this idea. And that really has changed my, on a personal note, has really changed my perspective on what it means to get started.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, just tell everyone, Stephanie, what I authorized for your brand budget for the logo for Really Rich. You can tell everyone.
It was $100.
Okay.
$100 for like 3 different versions, and
okay,
what had it done?
Okay, the Nicholas Crown, the Really Rich brand, is already generating hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But why do we spend $100 on the logo? Because it doesn't matter right now, and it's going to change anyway. Okay.
Which is something we've also learned by just from Amoeba. I think on a personal note, I learned so much from starting Amoeba, because we changed so many things so many times, and every time we tried to make it so that, okay, this is the final version of this, we realized quickly that it wasn't, and that it couldn't be. And so I agree with that. I was one who used to push for the fancy logos and the bigger budgets, and I've learned that it's definitely not worth it.
And this isn't putting down, by the way, graphic designers and sophisticated logo designers who are solving the problem. It's just, we know where we are in the life cycle of this business. Like, we know that we don't need to go there right this moment. So we pay for quality work and performance, and I'm a big proponent of that. What I'm trying to say is, in these early stages where it's going to change, when you know, or you should know, it doesn't matter. Okay. Look at the early logos of unicorn companies, guys. All these things start to change. I know we're picking on logos unfairly, but it's a great example. Another great example is, and this is where we get into maybe some areas of disagreement, but just the legal structure of certain companies. You can spend thousands and thousands of dollars legally structuring in a beautiful way your company that will never generate a single dollar. Why did you do that? Right? Like, I feel like that's just this one thing that everyone, okay, well, good. Got my company idea. I've got the sort of mock-up for the product. I've got the 3D mold, whatever it is. I have my suppliers in China. Everything's negotiated. Okay, I'm going to go call up, my local, high quality business attorney. I'm going to spend $5,000 on structuring this company. I mean, depending on what business you're in, guys, it's again another step that I think you need to start iterating, testing, and selling some product before you start reinvesting in areas like that.
So can we go and define a little bit of what you mean by micro adjustments and how you have utilized those in business?
Sure. So there's guessing. Let's not underestimate guessing, because if you guess a lot, eventually you're going to get it right. Right. The broken clock is right 2 times a day. For me, TikTok is guessing at first, and then it became micro adjustments. So then it was, if we can use this as an example, obviously everyone in this room, or most of these people in the room, have seen the different variations of content, right? But the idea would be, starting with the 2 characters, now be trying to isolate what is it that's funny about these two characters, because you have to understand, I didn't know what was funny about Rich versus Really Rich when I started it. How could I? Right? So then I started to draw character diagrams about what each character represents. And I'm sure you guys can see over time, there's different changes and tweaks and iterations. Maybe one week, the rich guy is really focused on time. Maybe the next week, the really rich guy is focused on giving. Okay? Not that I want to get too scientific about just content that's designed to be fun and hopefully have some message to it, but this is what I do in the background that now is I'm iterating the little minutia. So to move away from content and to talk about character traits, we'll use the example of amoeba. Okay, maybe it's not elective procedure doctors, maybe it's dentists, right? Because the problem that dentists have, in case you guys are curious, the problems that dentists have is it's highly competitive on Google Maps, okay? So when we said, hey, okay, medical still seems like a good opportunity for us, maybe we'll move into dental from plastic surgery. And then we tried dental.
We did.
And we did. Yeah. Anyway, it took us a lot of iteration, but the good news is, well, the lesson here also is iteration shouldn't bankrupt you, right? So each move you make on the chessboard shouldn't cost you. Each move on the chessboard shouldn't cost you such a large amount of money that you can't make 100 moves. If 100 moves pushes you out of business, you're spending too much on each move.
Okay, so let's say you do spend too much on this move, right? How do you recover from business loss?
Yeah, okay. So this is math. This is just like the basic. And if you want to learn about don't never go to zero, read Nassim Taleb, anything by Nassim Taleb. Like the idea is don't die. Like in the video game, don't die. It's the same thing in business. Never go to zero, right? So never spend your last dollar. Never spend your last investable dollar. Always have a reservoir of moves left. Okay, which might mean stopping and slowing down for a second. Instead of saying, okay, all right, we tried dentists. We tried plastic surgeons. We've got $5,000 left. We're going to spend that 5 on whatever that final iteration is. My suggestion would be to slow down and give yourself some more moves. Never go to zero. When you go to zero, you're out. You're out of the game. When you have no more investable capital, you're out of the game. It's very, very hard to come back from zero. I've done my best to never go to zero. I've got close. You talk about that at some point, but I've never gone to zero. It's very, very hard to recover from zero. It's the same concept. It's a gambling concept, right? You can survive folding hands, right? But you go all in, and you lose you're done. You're not going to play. You're out. Time to fly home. Is that
okay?
Not sure if that answers.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So one last business question, then we'll move on to other things. Would you say it's better to specialize or diversify? Oh, finance question, I guess.
Okay. Okay, so we'll look at the archetype of the technician, the technical person, the specialist, and then maybe the archetype of the manager, right? Or the owner. I think everyone starts as a technician in some field that they're incredibly interested in, but over time, if you want to be a business owner, you need to start to train yourself to think more in a managerial seat where you say, I can find other folks, like-minded folks that are specialists who can replace me over time. And that's how you're going to grow, because the issue with being a specialist or a technician in the long term is you're trading dollars for time. That's the biggest
So
issue.
we're talking about skills, right?
Skills, yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
It's the difference between being a incredible trial attorney and the owner of the law firm. The difference there is, of course, by the way, it could be incredibly fulfilling to be that trial attorney. But if you're someone who's not interested in trading time for money, you need to start to find other technicians and other specialists and start to move yourself into the mindset of the manager. A good book and an old school book for this would probably be the E-Myth, E-Myth. That's in the reading list as well, guys, on the website. Someone could post the reading list. Actually, I've got it here. Got it right here. You'll notice I'm doing a lot of talking. I'll reference a lot of books. I'm talking a lot about reading. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I don't think I really understood how important it was to be a reader until COVID. 2 years ago. Reading, I think I always just assumed that you could learn from books, and I always faked it. I was always a fake intellectual in college and whatever, but I never actually consulted with a challenge by reading the book first. I think primarily until 2 years ago. I think for me that was a complete paradigm shift. Instead of just going, shit, I don't know a lot about marketing. I just won't ever know a lot about marketing. Or I'll watch a few YouTube videos. It's okay, I don't know a lot about marketing. I'll read 3 books on marketing. And then I'll worry about not knowing about marketing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And ever since I started working with you, you've always given me books for homework. And I've always been an avid reader, but never in an educational sense, more in a self-help way or fantasy way or whatever. And really discovering the power, that one single book has on my ability to negotiate or my ability to build a business really has opened my mind to just being hungry for reading anything that I don't know about, So yeah, I agree.
It's the cheat code that everyone think no one's going to argue that reading is it. But every really, really sharp person that I've admired, and by the way, these aren't the people in the fancy suit with the Ivy League degree in the Polo Ralph Lauren restaurant in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. These are the guys in Miami with the cutoff shirt and the Ferrari and the gym shoes who are reading. So if you guys want to have the script flipped on what these people look like, it's what you least expect. Okay. The people in the pinstripe suit, meaning me in the old days, wasn't reading shit. I was pretending I was reading, but I wasn't reading shit. The guys in the gym clothes, right, are the guys that are reading. Reading is a hustle tactic, and it seems so very obvious, but it's absolutely not. And I know for a fact that most people do not read.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because in order to be able to actually sit down and read, you have to have a certain environment and a certain, you have to decide to spend your energy in that way. So it does kind of change the way you live your life and spend your time. Kyle has a question. He says, recently changed careers into the mortgage industry, and now I have an opportunity to get into a leadership position and develop and grow an entire region. How do you not get overwhelmed by an opportunity and stay focused on the day-to-day?
Okay. Can I have Kyle clarify this a little bit? When we talk about get overwhelmed by the new opportunity, are we talking about get overwhelmed by the expanded role? Hey, I've got so much more to do in this leadership position. Kyle, are we talking about what exactly are we talking about here? Overwhelmed by opportunity? Or are you saying, hey, it's cool to get offered that leadership position, but actually I kind of want to do something else, or I'm fine in my current role. I'm making as much money.
Let's see. Kyle's typing.
I have 2 different answers here, right? We're going to talk about something called strategic versus opportunistic opportunity. And I'm wondering if that's what we're talking about here.
Well, let's give Kyle a moment, and I'll ask you another question we have down here. It says, personally, do you think designing NFTs can be a start to...
Kyle's invited to speak, by the way.
Oh, okay, nice.
Kyle, it sounds like you can just start talking.
I think he has to accept the invitation. He says, yes, the expanded role, being overwhelmed by the possibilities in front of you and the amount of work you can do. Don't have my hook. Oh, he doesn't have a mic.
No problem. Okay, sweet. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, this is a million questions in one, right? It's how is your time management? Is this a role that you actually want? When you close your eyes and you picture your perfect moment and you picture where you're going to be sitting in 10 years, by the way, everyone should freaking do this every morning they wake up. Close your eyes, picture where you want to be in your perfect moment, what you're wearing, who you're hanging out with, how everyone's looking at you, how people are treating you. Do this every single morning, right? I do this every single morning in lieu of a traditional meditation, right? So do you want this role? If you do, okay, if you actually want this role, then start time management and start designing how you're going to make this work. Don't take a role that's going to ruin your life. Don't take a role that you just feel like you should, because in the mortgage industry, right, in finance in general, in a bigger picture, you're always looking to level up. So focus is about chunking your day into smaller pieces in time management. I mean, I can talk a little bit about how I manage my days. I schedule my days incredibly strictly, if that will help. But
let us know if that will help, Kyle.
yeah, it's hard to answer. It's hard to answer this question because I'm not. If we had mic access, I think we could go a little bit deeper into it. It's just for me, I could approach this a handful of different ways.
So how do you structure your day? I think people will definitely be interested. Oh, see, people are already saying that they'd love to hear about your time structure.
So I structure my days.
So Kyle's saying that he 100% wants it. He wants to run the company in 10 years.
Yep. Well, this is strictly time management. And this is jumping in. And this is getting comfortable with the new role, and it's a period of growth and discomfort. Okay. From my vantage point, from my very limited, ignorant vantage point, if you're the guy that's going to be the CEO one day, you just jump in. You start learning how to chunk your schedule, and you start learning how to defend your schedule relentlessly from distraction, which, having worked in the fraternity style trading floor, this might be the same environment in mortgages where you got to defend your time. Okay. And you might lose a few friends in the process.
Like any process that includes growth, I think.
Yes.
So let's talk about that structure of your day, because I think that can help Kyle and I think all of us who are listening.
Okay. So every day for me there's a few key components. There's fitness, and I'm not just saying that. I train 6 to 7 days a week. I don't get to pass into the next level of anything until I do that, right? So every morning for me, I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't wake up at 5. I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning. And every day is fitness. I've also designed my life where I live really close to my gym. Always done this. It's really hard to go to the gym if you live freaking far from your gym. So just like basic efficiency planning. I'm almost ridiculous about this, guys, because over time, if you just all these half hours getting in the car, going back and forth to the gym, these are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours you're wasting, right? So if you can, over time, try to get close to whatever fitness or whatever your morning routine is. It does not have to be fitness. So for me, I start with an hour and a half at the gym. I personally do weight training, and then I start work. Okay. The first thing that I do, and this changes over the course of my career, what I do now is I have strict content writing, planning, and recording, production, whatever you want to call it, every day. What I do is I plan and record the content for the next day so we can post first thing in the morning. So everyone wakes up and they get a piece of content ready to go. Okay. So content planning takes me to 2:00. Content planning, writing, production takes me to 2:00. 2:00 to 3:00, there's a team meeting. And then that team meeting generally should be an hour. Sometimes it's 2 hours. It takes me to 4. 4 is when I just do general checkup on the rest of the business. And if we're not in a growth sprint phase, I'm done at 5:00. I'm done at 6:00. I'm not working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Okay. Because what I found is if you're working until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, for me, that's when the quality of my work starts to slip. And that's when I start to throw my balance off personally. Everyone has their own balance they need to find. But for me, here in Chicago, it's like when it starts to get a little, well, it's dark every day here in the winter, but it starts to get a little dark, 5:00, whatever. That's when I start to wind down. And that's when, Monday through Thursday, generally move into some reading. And then you got to get out and you got to do something social. You have to get out into the real world. You have to force yourself to get out into the real world, especially in this environment, whether that means taking yourself out to dinner, as simple as that, meeting up with friends, doing a sport in the afternoon, whatever it is, whatever region you're in, whatever your thing is, getting out and doing something in the real world is absolutely critical. Every single day, you say, well, isn't that boring, Nick? You do the same thing every single day. Well, no, the reason that it's not boring is because it takes choice out of the matter. It means things are going to get done, right? So if your day is structured the same way, there's no choice. When you wake up, you don't go, am I going to go to the gym or am I not going to go to the gym? No, you're going to go to the gym. Am I going to do content writing? Yeah. Or am I going to record the video after I finish the content? Yeah. So you just tie and you loop together all of these rituals or I guess habits. And the book you can check out, guys, is called Atomic Habits for habit structuring. Okay.
Yeah.
This is critical. This is critical. People that don't do this, everyone's different. Everyone has their own structure, but people that don't do this have a really, really hard time making progress. This is just, I do, the most successful people that I know all protect and maintain a very, very hardcore personal schedule. You guys can Google it too. There's a great podcast with Rob Dyrdek. He's on the HubSpot, How I Made My First Million. He
love the podcast. Yeah.
It's brilliant. He plans every minute of his day, every minute. And this isn't to live in some kind of cage. It's actually to give yourself freedom. He spends only 30% of his life, of his time working, right? So he spends 30% working, and then that gives him 30% to just hang out and exist with his family. And it's a beautiful thing, right? Because you go through these sprint phases. Right now, guys, you're witnessing a sprint phase for us, Rich versus Really Rich. As a brand, we're in a sprint phase right now. We're rolling out products. We're rolling out, this office hours, this sort of free form, freewheeling conversation. But we have a lot of like structured products that we want to roll out, that offers a ton of value, and we're in a sprint moment. So sometimes you have to go above and beyond to get it done. But traditionally, you need to carve out that time for yourself, whatever it is. For yourself, for your family, for your hobbies, fun.
Yeah.
Critical.
And I think I do agree. One thing that I always grew up as I was growing up thinking, oh, like routine and discipline, that's so boring. And as I've grown older and become, and start creating these habits, around my life, I definitely see so much freedom in just knowing what's coming next in my day, knowing that I will have time for my work and to give it the best and to give it, my fresh mind. And I will have time for my family and I will have time to walk my dogs because it's all there. I've already planned it. And so, I don't want to interrupt or be a party pooper, but we are 3 minutes beyond our office hour. Conversation got a little juicy.
Yeah, I mean, this has been great. These early questions are, I think, things that we'll continue to revisit. Just because we answered this one question about marketing or when is the right moment to jump in, I think this is something these are questions that we can continue to revisit in these office hour settings.
There's even more questions that we that we have to get to. Nick, are you up for one last one? Because we kind of started and then
yes,
we're interrupted.
Yes.
Okay. So it says, personally, do you think designing NFTs can be a start to bigger business ideas, like using that income for getting into more cash flow sources like real estate, for example? Or is that considered a good start, especially if they enjoy design and art and drawing? So what do you think of NFTs?
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, I think NFTs for me personally and for the Really Rich Squad are really interesting when there's economics around them, where there's a tokenization around them, when an NFT becomes a ticket to something or becomes a right to something, aside from just the pure art itself. Okay, that's my personal opinion. When you start to look at large NFT projects like VFriends from Gary Vaynerchuk, the tokenomics, so to speak, to me, this is where things get really interesting, because it provides a really clean and unbreakable way to offer special value to an audience or community. So that's why NFTs are interesting to me beyond the pure art. Now, if we just talk about the intrinsic value of the art, my friend, now we're really talking about sales and marketing. So You're a brilliant artist and you're a brilliant communicator, and you could rally an army around your specific vision, your artistic vision, and you can build the project safely and securely to all the top current standards, right? And you can release and you can sell that project. Well, cool. Take that capital and do what you will with it. You've done something incredibly hard. You've built a business around a specific style of art, maybe your own. You've rallied a community around it, and you've sold that project to people who think that just intrinsically there's value in that art that you've created. That's very, very hard to do, guys. Very, very, very hard to do. It's a little bit easier to start featureizing your NFT, saying this NFT gives you this access, or hey, this NFT gives you rights to someone's time, or this NFT gives you rights to my coding expertise, right? Because then it's you're tokenizing something that people want, and it has a dollar amount value. Well, I shouldn't say dollar. It has a value attached to it, very strictly, in terms of, hey, I need help with coding. If I buy your NFT, you help me, whatever, tokenize my own idea on the blockchain. You help me. I don't know. Is the answers here are limitless, I think.
Yeah, so stay tuned for our tokenizing. No.
Well, I think tokenizing for the really rich community is a smart way to, number one, add kind of a super future-proof ticket to all of the things that we're going to be doing. And again, focusing on the value and the feature-based side of the crypto world, as opposed to just purely the art. That's why.
And this is the time we're actually being open about our future plans with this. So you guys are getting an exclusive peek into the Nicholas Crown brain right here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad we have an NFT question, because if you just think about it purely in terms of what an NFT is, it's very, very simple, right? It's a one of one, okay? It's a one of one. It's a mathematically one of one, and that's all it is, right? It's what value can you put behind it? Is it the beauty? Is it the rarity? Is it the economics behind it and the access behind it? That's up to you. Okay.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm going to say let's finish this conversation here today. I know we have a few more questions that we can pick up on our next, happy hour time.
Cool.
Or office hour time.
Yep.
But the conversation was so interesting. I think both Nick and I hope that we were helpful and that we helped you answer at least a few of your questions and that you'll feel like coming back for our next office hours.
Please. Yeah. So thanks for joining us, guys. And yeah, we're gonna put some sweat in and try to get these questions answered for you every week. And if we don't have the answer, we're going to be transparent about it. We're going to send you to the right resource or the right book or the right expert that can lend a better helping hand than us. So thanks for joining, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.